Pauline Tully, our Vice Chair.
Good evening, Minister and Department officials. Look, I welcome the fact the NCSE staffing level is going to be increased because that's badly needed. I mean, we had the NCSE be front of us, I think it was the Autism Committee, and at the time there was a significant increase in the number of administrative staff, but not in CNOs. But I, like Senator Siri Carney said there, I've heard from families where they're handed a list of schools and away you go with yourself. And it's soul destroying for the child, it's soul destroying for the parents when they get refusal after refusal. But I'm even wondering why that even has to happen, because if a child starts in preschool and is accessing the AIM programme, there should be a joined up thinking that that information is then passed on to the primary schools, so we know how many primary school places we need, and from there certainly into the secondary school. So no child should be without a place. And they should know what, I know needs might change, but that should be monitored on an ongoing basis, and they won't change that much. I mean, nobody should be scrambling for places or having to worry. I actually had a mother in contact with me, her child's only in 3rd class, and she's already worrying about where that child will go in 4 years' time. So no child should be. So just, is there going to be a better sort of joined up thinking between the 3 stages and also better planning of space? And I'm just wondering, Minister, as well, like your vision for an inclusive education, because we have obligations under the UNCRPT to provide inclusive education in this state, and that's not happening at the moment, because I hear from more and more parents who are actually opting to send their child to a special school rather than into an autism class in a mainstream school. And the main reason is the lack of appropriate training. The staff do not. Actually, one parent in Monaghan said to me, I had to move my son because it was actually causing him more harm than good being in the placement he was in, and he's now in a special school. But parents are nervous of not going to a special school because the confidence isn't built up in the autistic classes within the mainstream, and that needs to happen. Like with the school inclusion model is an excellent model, but it needs to be rolled out. But there also needs to be links with the CDNTs in the community and primary care, and that's not happening. I had an official in the HSC say, also those departments don't talk to each other. But they should be talking to each other. It should be a child-centred approach. I mean, the whole new model there, set model where complex needs is excluded, I was told by the NCSE that the reason for that is the lack of info from the CDNTs. But the schools are saying they have the info if there was a way of inputting it. And could the pod system not be used to actually input that information and, so that, because the review process that's there, I think it's there to discourage applications, is so bureaucratic and full of red tape. But I mean, I was at 360 schools, there was only 60 of them that actually were granted a review. Was that last year, the year before? And only 39 had their hours increased. So, if they're not happy with their set hours, going through the review process is off-putting, and a lot of them don't even consider it. And just in relation to summer programme, there still are insufficient places and insufficient schools offering it. I'm just wondering if you comment on the INTO rep that was at the launch last week, or at the marking of the event last week, said the capitation grant has been cut. If that's the case, why is that happening for the summer provision? Also, Minister, if you comment on an article that was in the Irish Independent yesterday, where parents are actually paying top-up cash to teachers to have their child included in the summer provision, which is a disgrace. I mean, if there were sufficient places, that wouldn't be happening. And shouldn't be happening. But,
I know that from September 2022, inclusive education, it's a mandatory component in all initial teacher training programmes, so it's aligning with the CAME standards for initial teacher education. What I would like to see, and I've been engaging with my colleague for higher education, Minister Patrick O'Donovan, around teacher training colleges, and as part of all teacher training, that when you're doing your teaching practice, you should be assessed for teaching in a special class or in a special school. This should just be common practice where teachers feel equipped. And then you have, I suppose, continuous professional development as well, and that teachers have access to that training within schools across the country. That's really important. I think as well the 39 or the 44 therapists that I talked about again will help us with the capacity buildings of teachers in relation to rolling out therapies across the schools. There's also 338 postgraduate funded places every year. So we'd like to do more in that space as well. And again, as part of the budgetary process, I want to ramp that up as well, because I do know that teachers feeling confident as well and feeling that they have the skill sets is a really key part of this. The SET hours, you mentioned schools been onerous. I think previously, when it used to be onerous, the review process for the SET hours, so the SET model reviews, so these latest reviews, 83% of the schools who proceeded to a full review, so they got additional resources, and that was 1,200 hours. And to answer your question, the process was significantly streamlined, so it's been made less onerous now, and maybe schools aren't aware of it because maybe the older process it was more, I think there was more paperwork or something involved in it, so it is easier now for schools to engage in a review of their SET hours. I think that's a good message to get out there. The summer programme, made reference to it earlier, so the focus is on, it's €40 million for the summer programme. We've seen the numbers increased of those taking up this, so it's gone from 1,400 schools to 1,700 schools. When we reached out to schools and teachers and asking them what are the barriers, because as you know, parents wanted their local school to open up a summer programme. Some schools, many were not doing it, and one of the key barriers was the pay rates for the teachers and the SNAs, so we increased that. And as a result, we've seen the numbers of schools increasing. The focus was on the special schools, and that capitation rate was at €60. The special classes in mainstream schools is at €45. But we have seen the numbers increase. There are limited, I suppose, resources, and it's going to be under review, but we have seen an uptake from, it's gone from 13,000 children participating in the summer programme to 50,000. And I'm going to be constantly reviewing this programme to try and make sure that more schools take it up. Don't know, was there other areas there? Oh, sorry, the early intervention classes, thank you. So the early intervention classes, they're available in mainstream and special school settings, as you know, for children aged between 3 and 5 years with a diagnosis of autism. And a small number are also available for children who are deaf or hard of hearing. So these classes, they're intended to provide early support to children before they start school and can aid their transition to junior infants. And for the 2023-24 school year, there were 157 EL classes nationwide. 7 new classes have been sanctioned for the 24-25 school year. So a child's attendance in an early intervention class does not mean they'll require a placement in a special class during their primary education, and many students enrol in mainstream classes thereafter. But part of that transition as well is going to be the role of the NCSE, the CNOs on the ground as well. That's going to greatly help in that transition into primary school as well.
Pauline, quick question. You know, when you say the number of schools taking up the summer provision, you know, and it's not as many as we want, and we want to try and concentrate on the special schools. I mean, some principals I feel are very precious about their school, and it's almost like they own the school, but the Department of Education owns the school. And if the principal isn't willing, you know, it has been opened up to other organisations. I mean, could it not be made that, you know, if there's another organisation or another teacher or set of teachers from a different school come in and use the facilities in that school? I mean, it's like...
Yeah, it's not that... the special schools are just more complex, and that's why it's €60 for... So we want all schools to do it, right? We don't want to concentrate on the special schools. And you are correct. And what we're trying to do is, from a department point of view, is trying to reach out to schools to encourage them to take it up. But because the patrons own the schools, we don't have the ability to force a school to do it. So what we're doing is working with schools, engaging with them, asking them what are the barriers, and we will constantly have that under review. But what we have seen are the numbers across the board, special schools and mainstream schools, taking up the summer programme. So the numbers have significantly increased. Yes, there's more demand, and we want to continue to do that and work with schools in that area.
And the top-up payments that parents are
I absolutely don't agree with that. No. I don't know why. Like, one of the key barriers was pay for teachers and SNAs. We increased that.